Hello, Bookish Babes, and welcome to my book nook. Most of them know me. My name's Rainey. I'm an elementary music teacher and middle school musical theater teacher by day. I also am a booktuber with my millions of bookshelves behind me, and I love to talk all things books, especially thriller and horror, sometimes romance, a little mix of historical fiction, and now fantasy, as I've read ACOTAR and I'm very much enjoying it. Anyway, if you're interested in that sort of deal, you can hit subscribe so that you see videos. They come out on Sundays and also random when I feel like it, especially at the end of December because there's lots of things that I just want to share, and so you're getting a lot more videos in December. Anyway, in today's video, if you haven't watched, I first uploaded my worst books of 2021, and I only had 5 because I've only read 26 this year, and I'm not going to keep repeating that, and I'm not going to keep explaining why. If you want to know why, watch a previous video. Anyway, I had my worst videos of 2021, and so now we're going to do my best videos, or best books of 2021, and I have 13 books that I'm going to share with you today. I am also going to share a couple of honorable mentions, books that did not make it into the best books of the year award category, but they were still worth mentioning, and I still really enjoyed them. And so with that, we're just going to dive right in, and we'll start with the honorable mentions, and then we'll build our way up to Book of the Year. So a couple of these were library books, so I'll just post a picture of them on the screen so that you can see them. But we have When the Reckoning Comes by Tanya McQueen. Absolutely loved it. I gave it a 3.5 only because of the last 20% of the book just kind of didn't jive with me. I've talked about this book before on here, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about honorable mentions, but When the Reckoning Comes was really good. Also, the Final Girl Support Group. Yes, I gave it 4.5 stars, but I've kind of pushed it back to 4 after further discussion with my mom, just because of like inconsistencies between like what happened and like what, and just like things like that. But I still really enjoyed it, so it's worth mentioning. And then The One by John Mars. Absolutely loved it. It was a 5 stars, but like it wasn't like a best book of the year to me. Like it was still great, and I will definitely read more from him, but like it's not going to be in my top. Still very much enjoyed it. And then Behind Closed Doors by B.A. Paris. Also a 5 star. Also very much enjoyed it. Would definitely read more from this author again. So I actually had an author taste test where I read from John Mars, B.A. Paris, and C.J. Tudor, which I guess I could also do the honorable mention of the other people because I did like it, but like it wasn't like amazing. It was a 4-star read for me. Yeah, no, it was a 4-star. It was just kind of okay for me. So I'm probably going to do a video soon where I actually like explain my ratings because people are like 4-star. That means you really loved it. No, I mean, yes. I don't know how to explain it. It was just because of the ending, fam. Because of the ending. But anyway, so When the Reckoning Comes, Final Girl Support Group, The One, and Behind Closed Doors. Those are all honorable mentions that didn't quite make it onto my best books of the year. But now let's get to the 13 books that did so we can find which book was my favorite of the year. Alright, coming in at number 13 is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. So this book was very, very hyped. Like I was honestly afraid of reading it when I first did because so many people were talking about it and either had very polarizing opinions. They either loved it or they hated it. I loved it. That's why it's book number 13 on my list, because I really, really did enjoy it. It is about a girl named Catherine, or her nickname is Kaya, and basically her mother abandons her and her family when she's younger because her dad is like a raging alcoholic. And so she has to like take care of her older siblings, or they end up leaving as well due to her father's drinking and physical abuse, and so she's left all alone, and she basically becomes like the swamp girl because they live out in the swamp. Then basically, like, this boy named Chase Andrews goes out looking for the Marsh girl, and he ends up, like, having a relationship with her, but, like, not really, because, like, he doesn't really care to have a relationship with her. And then someone else, she meets another guy, and he ends up having a relationship with her, and he, like, actually genuinely loves her. And so then you find out later that, like, the Chase Andrews guy is dead, and everybody is blaming the Marsh girl for being the one that had done it. And so it's just kind of like a story of, like, did she do it? Did she not? Like, who really loves her? And, like, this whole thing, and, like, it all has to do with being set in the swamp, which I'm not going to lie, some of the swamp scenes were really boring to me. But I really loved the story. I feel like you really get a coming-of-age story with Kaya and, like, developing from, like, when her mom left her to, like, where she ends up at the end. Plus, like, the last 2 pages was, like, holy crap. Like, you just find out some things that you didn't realize. And it was very eye-opening. I very much enjoyed this. I'm one of those people that very much loved it. So if you're interested in reading it, go check it out. You won't regret it. Then coming in at number 12 is Malibu Rising by Taylor Jenkins Reid, who I also love. Taylor Jenkins Reid. I discovered that this year because 2 of her books, the only 2 books I've read so far, are on this list of best books of the year. And so this one is about Nina Riva, who, fun fact, if you've read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, one of the husbands, Mick Riva, this is not a big deal, one of the husbands, Mick Riva, is like the dad of the main character of this. So like the two worlds co-align. Anyway, Nina Riva has an annual end of summer party, and like everyone wants to be around the famous Riva family because like Mick Riva is a famous singer and all of that. And it basically talks about how the night ends up in flames, and so it like goes to flashbacks between like the party and like what happens at the Malibu party this year and like what led them there through like the relationship of Mick Riva and his wife and like the kids, and like you get to see the dynamics between the siblings and also like what went wrong between like the husband or the mom and the dad that led them here, and like then what happened at this party. And like I just really loved it. I thought it was really good. The ending was just kind of okay for me, but I just loved like the story of like Mick and the wife. Like a lot of people didn't like that part. I loved that part. I loved the flashbacks. I just thought it was really great. I loved it. I very much enjoyed it. I had a great time with it. I would read it again. And so I definitely recommend Malibu Rising, especially if you're into Taylor Jenkins Reid. Right, number 11 comes in with The Kiss Quotient by Helen Huang. And this one is super cute. It's about a girl named Stellar Lane who is an econometrician, and basically like she has autism, which I very much resonated with this because two of my siblings have autism. One is severe and one has Asperger's. And she basically wants to have a boyfriend, but realizes that she doesn't really know how to have one and that she doesn't think anybody can love her because of how she is. And so she decides to hire a professional, so basically an escort. She hires Michael, and he like is just to be her boyfriend and teach her how to like not be awkward and like, you know, have sex and like all the things. And then of course it turns into like this whirlwind of a romance. And this was like a very steamy read, like very steamy. And fun fact, I tried listening to audiobooks for the first time with this book. This was not the book to do an audiobook with because like it said things that I did not want to hear someone else saying. I just wanted to read it. I didn't want to actually hear it. But yeah, it was just the cutest little read. I really enjoyed it. I loved their relationship and how much they really cared for one another, especially Michael. Like he is just a dream. I just loved this book. I can't wait to read The Bride Test and The Heart Principle next year by Helen Huang. Those are like books 2 and 3 in the series. And yeah, I just thought this was everything you needed in a romance novel. And so if you're interested in a cute, fun, lighthearted romance read, go pick this up. Coming in at number 10, which I don't actually have a physical copy of because I borrowed it from the library, is Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. This was my first Lisa Jewell book, and I am happy to say it did not disappoint. I absolutely loved it. This book is about 10 years after her teenage daughter went missing. A mother begins a new relationship only to discover that she can't truly move on until she answers lingering questions about the past. Laurel Mack's life stopped in many ways the day her 15-year-old daughter Allie left the house to study at the library and never returned. And so now she's in a relationship with a new person, but she keeps wondering, like, feeling like he knows something about his daughter's disappearance. And it was just a phenomenal read. It was a very sad read. It has very many trigger warnings on, like, kidnapping and abuse and, like, all this other stuff. So if you're not into that, don't read it. But I just loved it. And the ending was so sad and so tragic, but so good. Like, I read it in a day. I was very hooked. I was very impressed with this. I'm so excited to read more Lisa Jewell novels. Like, she was just fabulous. And so I really loved this. So if you're looking for a really good thriller, go check out Lisa Jewell. You will not be disappointed. Number 9 is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. This was my first Coho read, and it was great. Some people say that this is the best book that she has out there, and I don't know yet because I plan on reading through all of her books at some point. But for the first one, this was great. This is about a girl named Lily and how she had a young love when she was little named Atlas, and he was sweet and everything. He was homeless, but he ends up moving away. And so then she's grown up and she falls in love with this neurosurgeon named Brielle Kincaid, whose whole thing is, I don't want to be in a relationship. And then, of course, they end up in a relationship, and, like, she has to guide him through that. But then, like, it's like she has to go between Brielle and Atlas because Atlas shows up unexpectedly back in her life, and so then she has to make a decision. Is she going to be with Brielle, or is she going to be with Atlas? I have 2 things to say. 1, I hate the name Brielle. I think it's the stupidest name ever. I really didn't like that. 2, Atlas is my favorite character of, like, all time in 2021, so that should tell you my thoughts on this book alone. Atlas is, like, the type of guy that you want everybody to be with. You want to be with yourself. He's just loving and warm-hearted and just the tender soul that everybody needs, and so I loved this book purely for Atlas, and I cried at the end because this book is just magical. This also has trigger warnings, though, of suicide, depression, alcoholism, physical abuse, mental abuse, so if you cannot handle that, do not read this book. But if you can handle that, then read this book because it is beautiful. Like, I love this right here. Sometimes the one who loves you is the one who hurts you the most, and this could not be more true about this book. All right, let's talk about one that everybody is reading right now because the movie just came out, and number 8 is The Hating Game by Sally Thorne. I will say, I started this book in June and got to the 50% mark and then just kind of forgot about it, and so I started it again a week ago. I just wanted to start it over again. And I don't know, maybe June just wasn't the season for it. I was just not digging it then. I'm digging it now, and I watched the movie and thought it was the cutest thing ever, and I just can't wait to watch it again. Yeah, this is just adorable. If you don't know what this is about by now, it's about Lucy Hutton and Joshua Templeman, and they hate each other. Not dislike, they strongly hate each other. They are both editors for a publishing company for Bexley and Gammon. And basically, a promotion comes afoot where only one of them will be, like, the boss of the other, and only one of them can get it. And so, of course, like, they both want it, but they're enemies to lovers. So, of course, they're going to have, like, this really heated, passionate romance, and then have to figure out, like, who's going to get the promotion. And this was just the classic enemies to lovers trope, but done so beautifully well. And the movie was, like, such close comparison to it that I really, really, really enjoyed it. I loved this. I just thought it was so cute. It was like the perfect romance. I had the best time reading this. I really did. And I love them. Like, I love the way they talk to each other. I love Josh in this. Like, he is also an ultimate favorite. You love to hate them and hate to love them. I don't know, but this was worth the hype. So go pick it up. Next is another book that I do not physically have because it belongs to the library, and that is Finlay, Donovan is Killing It by Elle Cosimano. I just think this book is so fun, and I can't wait for book number 2 when it comes out in February. So it's about a girl named Finlay Donovan, and she is a single mom. Well, she's divorced, and she's down on her luck, and she doesn't have a lot of money. And she's a murder mystery person, and she's currently making her next book, and she's talking to her editor at a Panera, and a woman overhears them and thinks that she is paid to assassinate people, and so she asks if she will murder her husband. And so, of course, she doesn't want to do that, but then she also kind of wants to because, like, she has no money, and she needs money, or else, like, she's gonna lose her kids and, like, all this other stuff. And so it's like her and the babysitter, like, end up paired together in, like, this Bonnie and Clyde type situation, and, like, to see, are they actually going to go through with it? Are they not? Who knows? But it was really funny. It had me laugh a couple of times. There's even a cute little romance in it between her and the bartender that I just absolutely adore, and I'm just so excited when I think about the next book. It was just so fun, so lighthearted, a cozy mystery, definitely for sure. So if you're looking for a really great book, check it out. I loved it. I'm so happy. It was a very surprising read, and I loved it. Now let's talk about the white elephant in the room, because a lot of people hate this book, and you know what? I didn't. And that was Rock, Paper, Scissors by Alice Meany. This one slid its way into my TBR, like, right at the end of November. And I'm so glad it did, because this book was fantastic. I don't know why people say they don't like it. I really loved it. It was one of those books where, like, you're reading, and then halfway through something happens, and you go, oh my god, like, what was I reading? It's one of those twists. Like, I can't explain. If you know, you know. Because there's 3 twists, and if you know them all, you know them all. Anyway, so this is about Adam and Amelia, and how they have been married for 10 years, and their marriage is just going on the rocks, and so Amelia decides to do a last-ditch effort to save their marriage by taking them to win a weekend away in Scotland at, like, this abandoned wintry cabin. It's even right there on the cover. And so she takes them to this cabin, and basically some crazy stuff starts going on there. But the thing that I loved is that they kept doing flashbacks to, like, a letter she would write on the eve of their anniversary, explaining what's going on with them at the time. And so it starts with them being really happy, and then by year 10, you're like, holy crap, this is what's happening. And then the first twist happens, and you're like, oh my god! And then the second and third, and you go, oh my god! Anyway, I read this in, like, 10 hours. Like, I sat there and read this. I loved this so much. And if you didn't like it, I'm sorry, but I did. And so I will die on a hill saying that this was a fabulous book, and I loved it, and I'm so glad it made it into my top reads of 2021. Right. This goes out to all the fantasy fans in the room, because I really strongly gave this a try, because my sister let me borrow it, and I loved it, and it was A Court of Thorns and Roses by Sarah J. Maas. It even made it to number 5, fam. So the first 50% was kind of meh, but a lot of people have said to treat that like a prequel and to just get through it because the next part gets so good. And I must say, the end was quite phenomenal. And I'm really excited that she chose not to end the story there, and that there are 2 other books, because if she'd ended it here, like, yeah, that would have been fine. Like, it ends in a way that's, like, not a cliffhanger, but I'm so glad there's more to it. Anyway, if you don't know what ACOTAR is about at this point in time, it's about a 19-year-old huntress named Farah, and she kills a wolf in the woods, and then a beast-like creature comes and demands retribution. She's dragged to, like, this treacherous magical land that she only knows about from legends of, like, the fairies and the High Fae. And she's with the guy that took her is named Tamlin, one of the most immortal fairies who once ruled their world. As she starts to live there and starts to, like, change her feelings about fairies and fae and all that, she finds out about this wicked ancient shadow that's over the fairylands that is, like, causing destruction and growing, and she has to find a way to stop it, or else Tamlin and his world will be doomed forever and ever. And I really thought there was a lot of great world building in this. I loved getting to learn about all of the characters and the different courts, like Night Court and Spring Court and all of that. And I loved, like, the evil in it, and it just, yeah, like, it was really slow, not gonna lie, the first 50 pages, but I picked it up, or first 50%. But I love it. I also love Tamlin, and I'm saying that right now, fully knowing that I'm probably going to eat my words later on, because literally this has been spoiled so many times down the line with everyone saying, Tamlin is a terrible person. Rhysand is much better than him. But this book makes you love Tamlin, so I just can't even imagine why I'm going to hate Tamlin by the next time that I give you an update on this. But we'll see. I loved this. I'm very happy that I picked it up. I already have the other 2 books, and then I need to get the novella that came out and the one that's from Nesta's perspective. But yeah, definitely going to be reading more of this very soon. Then let's go with my number 4 read, and that is Drawn to You by Wren Montgomery, which is a good, near and dear friend of mine. So, this is about Ruby Dearden, and she has a plan. She, her laser focus has helped her become a successful cartoonist, and now it's going to help her reconnect with her soulmate, Sean Chaplin, aka the one that got away. She's a huge stalker for Sean. When she moves back to her college town to find him, she meets Jeremy first, and soon finds herself the apple of Jeremy's eye. He is also a stalker, so he's stalking her. Unfortunately for Jeremy, she only has eyes for Sean, even after she discovers that he's loaded down with baggage, but she figures she'll fix his life first and turn him into the person that she wants him to be so that he can become Mr. Right for her. And then Jeremy's stalking starts to escalate, the police are no help, her whole world starts falling apart, nothing's going according to plan, it's time for Plan B. This was really good. I will say it's a longer read, and there's, of course, trigger warnings about, you know, like, murder and stalking and just, you know, like, things like that, but I loved it. This twist, like, you're gonna really hate the ending, but you're also gonna love the ending, because it's one of those endings that is like, oh my god, did that actually just happen? Yes, it did. It did just happen, and your jaw's still on the floor recovering from it. Anyway, I just loved this. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I might be biased because, like, it's my friend's writing, but I still loved it, and I think it is phenomenal, and it was such a good read. I wanted to root for Ruby the entire time, because even though, like, she's crazy and she's a stalker, you still want to root for her, and that's how you know that she's a lovable character, because you're still hoping that everything works out for her in the end, even though she's crazy as hell. Here, at number 3 is another book that is at the library right now, and that is The Guest List by Lucy Foley, and I have definitely talked about my love for this book before. I've never read a Lucy Foley book before. It was very overhyped, but it lived up to the hype. I don't even care that it's like an Agatha Christie remake of And Then There Were None. I still loved it so much. So it's about a bunch of friends, different relationships to the bride and the groom. The bride and the groom are getting married on this isolated island in Ireland, I believe. And, like, some of the main characters are, like, the wife of the best man, and then the bride, and then the groom, and then, like, the person in charge of the whole place, and then just all this other stuff. And someone gets murdered, and then you have to find out who. And I love how it switched from, like, character to character of, like, what's going on in their mind, and then you'd get flashbacks to, like, the actual night of the wedding and, like, what's going on. And it was just so good. And I loved how all the characters were interweaved, and I just thought it was so, like, she just did such a good job at really interweaving all of them. And then when you find out, like, how they're all connected, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so sad and so tragic. It was just so good. Definitely, like, gonna remember that for a while. I really, really loved it. I think you will love it too if you haven't read it yet. It is worth the hype, so definitely go read it. Do it. You'll love it. 2 I do not actually have in my house because my sister is borrowing it, because I let everybody and their mother borrow this book because it is that freaking good. And it is The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides, which I forgot to mention earlier. An honorable mention from this year was also The Maidens by Alex Michaelides. So, he's still on both lists. The Silent Patient, it was very close to being my favorite book of the year. It's the book that I recommend the most to people, more so than my number 1 book, only because the twist is like, oh my god. Oh my god. Anyway, yeah, so this is about a woman, I can't remember her name right now, and she murders her husband pretty brutally, and after that never says a word again. Never speaks a word after murdering him. And no one can figure out why she murdered him. Like, there was no motive because they were so happy together, or so it seems. And so then there's this therapist that comes into the insane asylum that she is living in, and he comes in to basically be the first person to get her to crack and, like, talk. He thinks he's going to be the one to do it. And so it's just, like, the story of, like, their relationship and, like, sessions with her, and, like, also kind of, like, going back in time to, like, what happened to her before this murder, and, like, about the therapist, and, like, all this stuff. And I just, when I read the twist, I was just so, like, impressed that that's where it went, because you had no idea it was going there, and it just made you appreciate it so much more. And I will shout this from the rooftop, I love this book. I've gotten a bunch of my friends to read this book. Like, if you have not read this book already and it has not been ruined for you yet, please go read it. And if you hated it, I really want to know why. Like, give me why, because it was so fabulous. I loved it. Anyway, I loved it. Go read it. And then my number one book of the year, which you've been waiting for, that I absolutely loved, 2 pieces, was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid. This book is a masterpiece, a simple masterpiece. Like, I read it, when I say so fast, I read it like it would be in my car and I would want to read it at stoplights. That was how much I wanted to read it. I didn't do that. I refrained. But, like, seriously, that's how bad I wanted to read this book. So it's about a Hollywood movie icon, Evelyn Hugo, and she's finally ready to tell the truth about her glamorous and scandalous life, where she had 7 husbands, obviously. She chooses a random, unknown magazine reporter named Monique Grant to give the expose to. Why did she pick her? I don't know. Read the book to find out. But basically, she gives her the expose of a lifetime when telling her all about her life and the 7 husbands of Evelyn Hugo and why she had 7 husbands. And this book is just so beautiful and so raw and so sad and so I don't know. I don't know how to explain it. And there are trigger warnings. I don't want to tell you the trigger warnings because, like, that'll kind of give away some of it. But, like, if death, anxiety, depression, like, things like that kind of, like, upset you or you can't handle it, don't read this book. But other than that, it was just a work of art. Like, I loved this book. Like, I cannot even say, like, how much I loved this book. I will just have a lot of love in my heart for this book, like, forever and ever and ever, and you'll never be able to tell me otherwise. Like, I'm already looking excited to read it again, because I just loved it. Those were my top books for 2021. I had a lot of good books. Like, I honestly had a really great reading year. I shared 13 books with you and I only read 26. So half of the books that I read with you were in my top. Like, I loved them that much. So that's saying something. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I just loved my reading year. And I'm excited to read even more the next year because my reading goal is 100. If you loved any of the books that I shared, please drop down your favorite below. I would also love to know if your favorite book of the year for 2021 is different than this. If you haven't watched my worst books of 2021, go check that one out. There's only 5 books on that list. And then we should be coming out pretty soon with, like, other videos and, like, my tier ranking for this and all of that sort of fun stuff. So if you're interested in that, please stick around. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye, guys.